Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we sift through the sources you've shared, looking for those compelling insights, surprising facts, and essential nuggets of knowledge.
Mm,
Today, we're taking a journey into the tumultuous heart of the Roman Republic. We're talking mid-1st century BC.
right.
And we'll be navigating through excerpts from a historical novel, The Forgotten Legion. It's this rich tapestry, really, of interwoven lives against a backdrop of war, ambition, and just the harsh realities of ancient Roman life.
Exactly. And our mission today is to pull out those critical threads. What was life truly like back then? For everyone, from powerful generals right down to the most vulnerable slaves. And try to understand the big historical events that shaped their lives. As we look at this period, what jumps out at you first?
For me, it's always the stark contrasts.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of Rome's ambition, the empire building. And then you set that against the very personal struggles, the desperate choices people faced. Citizens, sure, but maybe even more so the enslaved population. It's a deep dive into power, survival, and maybe that enduring human spirit, the vibrancy and violence of Roman life. Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. From those big ambitions and contrasts, let's zoom right in. Daily life. What was it actually like living in Rome? The sources paint this vivid picture, right? Bustling city, dawn till dusk.
Yeah.
But also pretty dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. What's really striking is that contrast you mentioned. On one hand, you've got the grandeur, the Forum Romanum, just teeming with life shopkeepers, soothsayers, lawyers, politicians.
Right, the center of everything.
Totally. Flanked by huge temples, the Senate House,
Yeah.
and these massive covered markets nearby, like the Forumborium for cattle, the Olatorium for produce, incredibly busy places.
Okay.
But then shift away from those open spaces. The streets between the insulae, those, cramped apartment blocks,
Yeah.
dark, unlit, and after sunset, they became haunts for thieves, even murderers.
Wow.
Seriously. The sources say no decent Roman wanted to be caught out after dark.
So a city of extremes then. And this dual nature, it sounds like it went deep into the social structure too, especially slavery. The sources really stress how fundamental that was.
It was absolutely the foundation. Couldn't run without it. The narrative shows this so clearly. Take Tarquinius, working on a latifundium that's a huge farming estate for this guy, Rufus Caelius. At harvest time, the workload for slaves, even indentured families, it just explodes 4 times the work, forcing men to labor in just loincloths under what's described as the malicious intensity of the sun. And heavy iron manacles were common for slaves. Plus, you had this influx of cheap foreign grain. It basically bankrupted the small Roman farmers.
All right. Pushing them off the land.
Exactly, which then swelled the cities with starving peasants, people who ended up relying on congiaria, those free grain handouts, just to get by.
Vicious cycle.
Totally.
Yeah.
And many of those displaced people, or people captured in wars, they became the slaves. The human prizes of Rome's conquests, as the source puts it. 3 fates intertwined: Tarquinius, Brennus, and Romulus.
And it's in this Rome, this intense environment, that the novel introduces these 3 individuals. Their origins are wildly different, but their lives are about to get tangled up. It's fascinating how their stories shed light on the bigger picture. Let's start with Tarquinius. He's an Etruscan Haruspex from northern Italy.
Right, Tarquinius represents this fading culture of the Etruscans. His mentor, Olenus, he's this old Etruscan priest. A Haruspex reads omens from animal entrails,
Yeah.
He's trying to teach Tarquinius the ancient ways near the ruins of Phalaria, this once great Etruscan city. It really emphasizes how Rome was just absorbing everything. They even have these sacred Etruscan artifacts, like the sacred liver, supposedly the first one ever made by a Haruspex, and something called Tarquin's sword.
Wow.
And Olenus does this divination with a lamb. He foresees, well, a huge battle, which the Romans lose, then slavery, a long march into the east, and specifically Margiana.
Chilling. Making you wonder, doesn't it? How much was fate? How much was choice within that framework?
That's the big question. And then you have Brennus, a Gaulish warrior, also from northern Italy. His world just gets shattered by the Romans. His story feels less like fate, more like brutal reality hitting hard.
Right. What happens to him?
Well, his tribe, the Allobroges, led by this chief Caradoc, they actually fought back against Roman taxes, drove the legions off at first.
Really?
Yeah, but the cost was terrible. Half their warriors killed or maimed. And Brennus's own druid, Ultan, he also had a prophecy, a journey beyond where any Allobroge has gone or will ever go. He said many others would die, but Brennus wouldn't.
Ominous.
And then the hammer falls. He sees his village burned, his family wife lieth, his newborn baby killed inside their home. His cousin Brack dies protecting him. It's devastating. And it just fuels this deep, burning need for revenge against Rome.
Understandable. And the third thread, Romulus. A Roman slave. His life changes drastically because of his master, Gemellus.
Yes, Romulus, just a young boy. He gets caught practicing sword fighting. Seems innocent enough, right? He's with Juba, a Nubian doorman who, get this, was a former rebel under Spartacus.
No way.
Yeah, but his master, Gemellus, is financially strapped, desperate, and he uses this as an excuse. He sells Romulus to a gladiator school, the Ludus Magnus.
Just like that.
Just like that. And in this moment of just unbelievable cruelty, he threatens to sell Romulus's twin sister, Fabiola, to a brothel, and his mother, Velvina, to the salt mines.
That's horrific.
It is. And Romulus gets branded, LM, right on his arm. Property of the Ludus Magnus. A truly dehumanizing start to what's going to be a very harsh path. The world of gladiators and brothels.
So Romulus is thrust into the Ludus Magnus. This world of, well, brutal training, constant danger. What was that life actually like for him? How did he cope?
It was incredibly harsh. Purely focused on survival, nothing else mattered. He gets trained by this guy, Cotta, a former mercenary who actually won his freedom, the rudis, that wooden sword symbolizing it.
Ah, the symbol of freedom.
Right. Cotta earned it through extraordinary endurance. Romulus starts training as a secutor. That's a heavily armed type big shield sword.
Right.
Generally better survival odds than, say, a Retiarius with the net and trident. He learns these brutal basics. Shield up, thrust, step back, over and over. The pain of the brand, the intense discipline. It's immense. But inside, he's got this burning rage, you know?
Yeah.
Fueled by guilt, and the image of Gemellus is just burnt indelibly into his soul.
In the arena itself, I mean, it started as funerary rites, but became this massive public entertainment, often staged by politicians looking for popularity points.
Exactly.
Romulus's first big fight is a group combat. A fight to the death with just a bag of gold for whoever survives.
That's right. Survival of the fittest. Literally. He even learns this grim surprise tactic, aim for the liver. His trainers tell him it's always fatal.
Chilling.
And what's really shocking, beyond the fighting itself, is the crowd's reaction, their thirst for blood. It highlights just how cheap a slave's life was.
Yeah.
There's this vivid scene with a venator, an animal hunter. He kills a lion but gets badly injured himself. And then some wealthy patron he annoyed just has him shot dead with arrows. Casually.
Just like that.
Yeah, and that's when it hits Romulus, his realization. His life meant nothing to those scum. We're slaves, remember? It really hammers home the question, how much control, how much agency did anyone really have in that system?
It seems almost none. But maybe small acts, small choices.
Perhaps small acts of defiance, like Romulus practicing swords, or strategic thinking, like his sister.
Right, Fabiola. While Romulus is in the Ludus Magnus, she ends up sold to the Lupanar, Rome's most famous brothel. A terrible fate, you'd think. But the sources suggest she finds a way not just to survive, but almost thrive.
She does, in her own way. Initially, she's devastated, obviously, but finds, as the text says, small consolation in being sold to the best brothel in Rome.
Small consolation indeed.
Right, but she's smart. She quickly learns to use her position. She extracts information, gossip, secrets from her powerful clients, becomes one of the most sought-after women there.
Wow. Using information as power.
Exactly. And she's strategic. She makes sure the doormen, these tough guys, Benignus and Vettius, are looked after good food, access to the best surgeon, builds alliances.
Smart move.
Very. Her ultimate goal isn't just getting by day to day, it's manumission, freedom, and finding Gemellus. She also wants to uncover the truth about her father. She suspects he's some nobleman who raped her mother. She has this incredible will, this sharp mind working constantly, the high-stakes game of Roman politics.
So while Romulus and Fabiola are fighting these intense personal battles for survival, for some shred of control, their lives are playing out against this much bigger backdrop, this high-stakes political game tearing Rome apart, the Triumvirate. Crassus, Pompey, Caesar. How did their power struggles, which seem so removed from a gladiator or a woman in a brothel, actually impact the city? Impact people like Romulus and Fabiola?
Oh, the impact was huge. The sources show this intense rivalry boiling just beneath the surface and often right out in the open. Crassus, famously the richest man in Rome, huge wealth, right?
Yeah.
But he struggled for real popularity, always felt overshadowed by Pompey, by Caesar. He seems deeply insecure. The sources say he was apoplectic with rage when Pompey basically stole the credit for crushing Spartacus's revolt.
Oh, that makes sense.
And Crassus's reaction, he orders 6,000 captured rebels crucified along the Via Appia, 6,000, just so he could claim back the glory. Shows his ruthlessness, his desperation for recognition.
Good grief. And Pompey, he sounds like the opposite, a master of PR, funding huge building projects, games.
Totally. His new stone theater on the Campus Martius, massive games, all about public image. It highlights just how crucial public approval was if you wanted to get elected to high office, maintain power.
But it didn't always work.
Not entirely. Even the fickle public, as the source calls them, sometimes found Pompey's displays a bit over the top. Meanwhile, you've got Caesar quietly gaining massive prestige from his conquests in Gaul.
Right, the rising star.
Described as lean as a whippet, inspiring incredible loyalty in his men, like Brutus. And the novel even drops this hint, a possible connection, that Caesar might be Romulus and Fabiola's father, based on a resemblance Brutus notices?
Really, that has another layer entirely.
It does. And it all makes you think, doesn't it? How much of Roman politics was actual leadership for the Republic and how much was just showmanship, manipulation, pure personal ambition?
A timeless question, really. And this rivalry, this tension at the top, it wasn't just abstract politics. The sources show it spilling onto the streets, right? Affecting daily life directly.
Absolutely. Rome became incredibly volatile. You had political gangs, essentially loyal to figures like Clodius Pulcher or Titus Milo, literally battling it out in the streets. Public unrest, violence. It got so bad they even had to postpone elections.
Chaos.
Total chaos. And it shows how instability at the very top destabilized everything. It created this powder keg atmosphere, which ultimately sets the stage for one of Rome's biggest military disasters. The road to Cara, a fateful prophecy.
That volatile atmosphere leads us towards Cara, and our characters are on a collision course with it. Tarquinius, the Haruspex, he's back in Rome, still seeking revenge on his old master Callias, guided by his omens.
Yes, he's waited a year. And he finally encounters Callias again, who's now, interestingly, a slave trader. But the really pivotal moment comes when Gemellus Romulus and Fabiola's former master, remember?
The one who sold them. Right.
He's desperate, needs guidance. He asks Tarquinius for a prophecy about Crassus's big campaign brewing against Parthia.
And what does Tarquinius see?
He tells Gemellus, point blank, that Crassus would never come back to Rome, that he would meet his fate in Parthia. And he doesn't stop there. He foresees Gemellus's own misfortunes, too, ships full of beasts sinking at sea, financial ruin.
Wow. Talk about bearing bad news. How does Gemellus take it?
Not well. He struggles to accept it. It really shows the power people believe divination held, but also, human nature. We resist bad news, especially about ourselves.
True. And it's Crassus's ambition, isn't it? His need for glory, wanting to conquer first Jerusalem, then Parthia. That really kicks things off.
Absolutely. This was his chance, he thought, to finally outshine Pompey and Caesar in military glory. So he gathers this enormous army, thousands and thousands of legionaries, cavalry, marches them across Syria towards the Euphrates River.
But things start going wrong early. Omens.
Yes, the campaign is just riddled with bad omens from the start. Things Crassus, in his arrogance, completely ignores. But the worst one, the real morale killer, it happens during a ritual sacrifice.
What happened?
Crassus is holding the bull's heart, the symbol of your bravery, and it slips right out of his grasp, falls onto the sand, and turns yellow, the color of the desert.
Oh, wow. You can imagine the effect on the soldiers.
Instant dread. It just shattered what little confidence they had left. A terrible sign right before facing a dangerous enemy in their own territory.
And the Battle of Carrhae itself, 53 BC. It's infamous. Why was it such a complete disaster for the Romans?
Several reasons. Crassus made huge tactical blunders. He had way too much infantry for the open desert terrain, and crucially, no horsemen, or rather, not enough effective cavalry to counter the Parthians.
And the Parthians knew how to use that terrain.
Perfectly. They were nomadic desert warriors, masters of hit-and-run tactics with horse archers. And they had cataphracts, these incredibly heavily armored cavalry, like ancient tanks, horse and rider, both covered in scale armor. Devastating charge.
I'm the Parthian shots.
Exactly. Firing arrows backwards while retreating. Lethal. The Romans just couldn't cope. One of his legates, Longinus, apparently urged Crassus to keep the legions in solid lines, tight formations. But Crassus scorned the advice.
The result?
Catastrophic. The sources say 20,000 Roman soldiers killed, another 10,000 taken prisoner, and the ultimate humiliation, 7 legionary eagles captured, those sacred standards.
Yeah.
Losing them was unthinkable.
A devastating blow to Roman pride and power.
Yeah.
And Crassus himself, what was his fate?
The ultimate indignity, really. He was captured, taken prisoner. And in Seleucia, the Parthian capital, they staged this horrific public execution.
What'd they do?
They forced him to watch as captured Roman officers and even prostitutes were crucified, had their throats cut. And then for Crassus himself, the final symbolic punishment for his legendary greed.
Molten gold.
Molten gold poured right down his throat. It apparently mirrored how another famously greedy Roman governor had been executed before. A brutal, very pointed message about Roman avarice. A truly chilling end for the richest man in Rome, the forgotten legion, and a new destiny.
So the battle's over. Crassus is dead. And our 3 guys, Romulus, Brennus, Tarquinius, they're among those 10,000 Roman survivors, prisoners now. What happens to them?
Right, and this is really where the core story of the Forgotten Legion kicks in. These survivors, legionaries, mercenaries, they're tied up, ropes around their necks, march south to Seleucia first.
Okay.
And then this incredible trek, over 1,000 miles northeast, deep into the desert, to a place called Margiana. That's in modern-day Turkmenistan.
Turkmenistan, wow, so far east.
Incredibly far, farther east than most Romans in history, as the source notes. And they don't just stay prisoners, they become border guards, forced into service for the Parthians.
A complete reversal of fortune. And they had a choice in this, or sort of a choice.
A brutal one. The Parthians basically offered them crucifixion, death by molten gold like Crassus, or join our army.
Not much of a choice, really.
Not much at all. So Romulus, Brennus, and the others, they choose service. They become this unit, the Forgotten Legion.
And how do they adapt? Romans serving Parthians.
It's remarkable. Tarquinius plays a huge role here. He uses his skills, his haruspex knowledge, not just for omens, but for practical strategy. He advises the Parthian commander, Pacorus, on things like navigating snow-blocked mountain passes.
Clever.
Very. And crucially, he convinces Pacorus to actually arm the Roman prisoners. He argues their discipline is valuable. And then comes his masterstroke.
Which is?
Silk. He gets hold of some silk by trading that ancient Etruscan ruby artifact, remember? And he figures out how to wrap it around the Roman shields. It makes them incredibly resistant to arrows. Arrow-proof, essentially. A game-changing tactical innovation.
Brilliant. Using local resources, ancient knowledge.
Exactly. And this Forgotten Legion gets its chance to prove its worth pretty quickly. They face off against Sogdian tribesmen.
And how do they do with their new shields?
They use their old Roman tactics, discipline, formations. The pila, those heavy javelins, are devastating against unarmored enemies at close range. The silk shields work. They win a huge victory.
Wow. And Tarquinius gets the credit.
Largely, yes. His ingenuity saved them. And this whole experience, the march, the battle, relying on each other, it forges this incredibly deep bond between Romulus, Brennus, and Tarquinius. They become like family.
And Romulus reflects on this, seeing parallels.
He does. He thinks back to the arena, the crowds, the politicians, and sees the same capriciousness of power at play here. How lives hang by a thread, how fortunes turn on a dime, whether you're in Rome or Margiana.
It sounds like this whole journey changes them fundamentally.
Absolutely. Romulus, who started as a Roman slave, now sees the other side. He understands the suffering Rome inflicted and feels, quote, ashamed of his blood. Brennus, the Gaul driven by revenge, he finds a new purpose. He's still a warrior, but it's different now. Part of this new, strange brotherhood.
And Tarquinius.
Tarquinius, the Etruscan, carrying this ancient knowledge. He sees Romulus. He sees his potential. He realizes Romulus is the one he can teach the ancient art of divination to. He remembers Alenus's prophecy. You will pass on much information.
Coming full circle.
Exactly. He starts teaching Romulus, sharing sacred knowledge, things like the world being round, how everything happens for a reason. It brings us back to that idea of destiny, doesn't it? But maybe a destiny you can understand, adapt to, even shape through knowledge and resilience. Outro.
Wow. What an incredible journey we've taken in this deep dive through time, across continents, into the depths of human experience, from those crowded, often dangerous streets of Rome, all the way to the brutal, sun-baked sands of Parthia. We've really seen how individual lives get caught up in these huge tides of history, how they're transformed by war, by power, and just by that enduring search for meaning.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it? The fates of Tarquinius, Brennus, Romulus, and even Fabiola back in Rome. They show that even when circumstances seem utterly desperate, completely controlled by others, human ingenuity, friendship, that basic drive to survive, they can carve out unexpected paths. unexpected destinies. The story of the Forgotten Legion is such a powerful reminder that history isn't just written by the victors, is it?
No.
It's also written by those who adapt, those who endure, those who, against all odds, manage to find their own way.
So thinking about all that, what does this mean for you listening? We've talked about knowledge being power, about critical thinking, in a world just flooded with information. Consider this. How can the lessons from the Forgotten Legion, lessons about adaptation, about resilience, about finding some agency, even when facing overwhelming forces, how might those resonate in your own life, especially when you face challenges that feel huge or beyond your control? How does understanding these past struggles, even through fiction, help us navigate our present?